Welcome back to the Modern Dad Society podcast, where we understand that our children learn from our actions, not just our words. We believe in personal development, highlighting the powerful influence of staying present and making conscious choices in shaping our lives and the legacy we pass down to the next generation. I am your host, and like always, take that deep breath in, hold it, and exhale, being present in this very moment with gratitude in your soul and love in your heart. That's awesome that you did that.
You already know.
Today I'm so thrilled. Today I'm thrilled because, as you know, we are on talking about the 7 laws of the modern dad. And maybe you don't believe me. Maybe we need some guests to come and maybe confirm some things that I wrote down because I know that there's a lot of value in there. But it's nice to hear from other people and other people who are in specific professions that can talk more deep about each topic. And so that's what we're doing. It. We're going to be talking about a modern dad doesn't make excuses, which is Law 7, and he confronts challenges head on, showing resilience and accountability. He is not lazy in his personal and parenting journey. He embraces proactive mindset and creates a culture of ownership and growth within his family. So today, we're thrilled to welcome Mr. Vince Ramos, a peak performance coach out of California. Vince has designed development programs and provided coaching to individuals who aim to lead a more fulfilling lives by nurturing their mental and physical well-being. And so today we're going to explore the journey of fatherhood through Vince outlook on personal development. He will discuss the transformative 10-week program he created called Wired to Win and how it can help fathers master themselves and positively impact their families. So, without further ado, welcome, Vince. Thank you for joining me in this episode today.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. I am fired up to get after it here. Yeah, and to just spread the good word and have a positive impact on parents and dads all across the world.
Awesome. And I'm excited because, this is my first video interview. So this is special for both of us. We've been doing it off video, but I definitely want to be a little bit more visual for people just because I know for me, I do like a little video with audio as well. It's nice to have that choice. So we're sharing this moment together. So yeah, if you don't mind, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your family. I know you have a little girl, hobbies, and then we'll go into business.
Yeah, man, most definitely. I like you said, I'm a LA-based strength coach. I've been living here in Los Angeles for 10 years. This is actually my 10th year here in Los Angeles. I'm originally from South Florida. My wife is also from South Florida, but we met out here and got married a few years ago, which seems like it just happened yesterday, but goodness. And yeah, we have two young girls under 5. Amira's is 3.5, and Gaia is just about to turn 1. We love to hang out together, do anything together. We love to spend time outside. We love to be in the outdoors. We love to take road trips, or just random little activities. But we love, enjoying time together and just doing things together and getting outdoors.
That's cool. Yeah, I know I mentioned to you. Um, I love how you in your business you have your daughter involved, and that really has a lot to do with actively involved. There's a beautiful balance when we can have an opportunity, whether it's our business or have the business ability to take our children to work when we want, to be able to do that. Because it's for me, I found that one of the hardest things about being the provider and going out and hunting, as the man, is that I have to leave my family, and somewhere deep down, it's some type of guilt, and so. And I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. And so, today we're going to be talking about that balance and how we can avoid this feeling, and gives us the tools to understand and give us a different perception. And so, speaking of business, I want you to tell us about your business and which is Train with Vince and how it serves the community.
Absolutely, man. Trade with Vince is essentially the goal is to help people operate at their fullest potential, to help them live in the here and now. And we do that by helping them learn, and love themselves first. You'll hear me say that a lot today. That's the pillar. That is the center pillar. That's the cornerstone. There has to be self-love. There has to be self-acceptance. And then by creating habits and an image and a character that they are proud of. Um, and ultimately living in this flow state where you're excited and you're enthusiastic about your life and about the challenges that present themselves.
That's cool. Well, what made you passionate about this particular industry that you're in?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, I grew up in the 90s, dude. I grew up before phones, before tablets. I was always outside acting a fool with the neighborhood kids. Mom, I was raised by a single mom, me and my brother, and she always had us in every sport, regardless of the season. So I was always a very active kid growing up. And as I began to grow and right around my middle school years, where you have a lot of that tumultuous change as a young kid, you start to take on stress. And exercise, whether it was walking or riding a bike or skating or playing sport with my friends, was always a coping tool to help relieve and release my stress. So I've always known the value of exercise and movement from that perspective. As I got into my later teens and started to do more weightlifting and weight training, it was just a great way to develop and express my energy, to develop as a young man, to build confidence and discipline, and perseverance. So right when I graduated high school at 18 years old, I knew what I was going to do. I knew what my path was. I knew how I was going to help people. I knew how I was going to connect with people. And yeah, the foundation of exercise since I was a very young man. So I knew the profound power of just exercise and movement as a lifestyle factor.
That's awesome. And I see that I noticed you do have a lot of videos of you moving and doing fitness, but based off of everything that you incorporate, that seems like only half the work. So are you usually calling a lot of your clients and talking to them over the phone and coaching them over other lifestyle practices as well?
Most definitely, man. So my training career began at LA Fitness at the age of 18 years old and has gradually progressed, over the last 17 years. I was offered an amazing opportunity early in my career to intern at a performance facility where I went from working with, youth athletes, rehabilitation patients, all the way up to professional athletes. And one of the prevalent aspects that
Okay.
became clear to me was that all of this high output training, you need to put the right stuff back in the body. So at that point, nutrition became so important to me. And I guess the underlying aspect of nutrition is just taking an interest in where your food comes from, right? Just mindful eating, mindful
Mm.
nutrition, no shortcuts around that. And then as my career continued to progress, mental health became a really prevalent factor, and how what you got ticking up here affects everything outside, affects your health. It affects, life outside of you. So there was a tremendous amount of overlap there. So as I've progressed through the 17 years, it started with just, push-ups and sit-ups and physical activity. It progressed to optimal nutrition. And then, now I'm integrating mental health and, personal development practices. And yeah, a good part of my work is having, conversations just like we're having here with clients where we check in, on a daily or on a weekly basis and see where they're at upstairs and see how it's affecting, their physicality, their physiology and life and their experience outside of that.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I love how you take care of the mind too, because my, I always told my wife, for me, even more important than going to the gym for me every day is having a good solid mindset because I can go to the gym every single day and come home and eat a pizza, which I don't eat, but I'm giving an example of like at least cheese pizza. But I'm giving an example of like if we don't control our mind, discipline our mind and our habits, then ultimately the gym is just something to do. It's not really, I don't believe it's really allowing the process to work in its fulfillment or its full potential if we're not taking care of the diet part. So I love how you carry, have both aspects in your training. I think that's awesome. I think that's important. And how do you believe that this approach to discipline can shape fathers' characters and influence the dynamics of the household? So how can this incorporate into the home, for fathers to incorporate?
Yeah, man. I mean, my philosophy, my program is one that my approach builds you from the inside out and from the ground up. And again, the first step is to learn yourself, love yourself, And it's the first step to building relationships with other people, with your kids, and with your spouse. And it's just so critical for a father and a human to become an example for their kids. So you first work on yourself and you embody those practices. You embody what it is that you're trying to instill in your kids with your words, because actions teach, right? Experience teaches, not so much the words that you speak. So if you're going to ask something of your youngster, you better be able to do it yourself. And a great example the other day, my daughter's in gymnastics and we practice here at the house. And, we practice her drills, do your somersault, do your handstand, so on and so forth. And I'll have her do a couple, but then she'll look at me dead serious and say, Dad, you do a couple. And you better believe I do my somersault and my handstand. And that's the way they learn. They observe. And if you can't back up what you're saying with your action, there's always going to be this little void of disbelief or, discredit when it comes to your kids. They observe and they act accordingly. And we are their first point of influence. And if we don't act right, they're going to get their modeling and their observations from the world outside, and you don't know what's going on. There's a little bit of everything out there, so you better make sure that you got that pillar locked, and that it's one that they can build up off of.
Yeah, that's good. Our children truly are lawyers in our home because it's those small things where if we say that they can't have juice while they're eating, and we get juice, and they always want to say like, well, how do you get juice? I mean, it's easy to be like, well, because I'm the parent or because you don't know how to eat your food. But truth be told, like if we're gonna set standards in the home, we should all contribute to those standards. And it's something they get me every time, and I always get tongue tied. They'll be like, "How come you get juice?" I'm like, "Look, just eat your food." So I need to be quicker on my feet. Or I can set the standard and just say, "Look, we're all gonna wait and drink until," because at the end of the day, we are growing with them. And
Yes.
while I always talk about that we're like coaches to our parents and we shouldn't get involved, we still should inspire them and be the example. There's no, nobody wants this, basketball coach or leader of a team. You know, they're leading you, but they're sitting there dropping rocks, doing free throws and stuff, and they can never hit a goal. Like that's not going to inspire us to be led by this person. So we have to inspire our children, and I think sometimes we forget that as parents, is that it's kind of like they're saying like you're married, right? So like they always say you have to constantly pursue your wife and hunt and be that hunter that you always were before you met them. Same thing with our children. Like we constantly have an audience, and that audience is our future, their future, and the world's future. And so, however we want them to be out in the world, we have to start modeling that. And I can't tell you, like I'm a strong believer in this. There's like a 10% chance where it's not the case, but it's like every time I look at a child, who they are, how they act, to me is a representation of their parents or a representation of what they're consuming without their parents knowing, or what their parents approve of. The children have no other way to live life than to reflect what they see. My son is always staring at me. I just turn around the corner. He's just like a paparazzi or somebody like, just like TMZ. It's just he's just looking at me and then waiting. My girl's just waiting to say something. And so, especially with my son, I really try to make sure that, like for example, I used to raise my voice with the girls a little bit when I first became a father, and they were 3, 4, whatever. And I used to always do that like a little bit, not like yelling, but just be a little more assertive than usual. And I had to make sure that I'm aware of my volume, aware of how I carry myself as a man, because when I tell you that boy like repeats every single thing the way he sees, like to me it seems like a gift. It's crazy. Today my wife was screwing in some stuff for the baby. We have a baby coming, and she was screwing in, putting together this table, and she let him hold the screwdriver, and he was literally 1 years old, just screwing it in, just because he's so focused and he pays attention to every little detail. He knows how to do things, pretty scary for his age. But so I love that. I've always, I always get inspired too when I see other fathers, incorporating their children in things and seeing how they are with their children. I absolutely love how you have your daughter working out with you in videos sometimes, And I know that's something she'll never forget. She's always going to remember that. She's always going to appreciate that, like they all do. So I think that's awesome. So there's something that you created that is really the meat of why we're here, and I'm excited to share because, I'm a huge fan of framework. Obviously, I created framework, the 7 laws of the modern dad, but you also have framework too, which did you create for your clients called Wired to Win. So talk about Wired to Win, what that is, and how that exactly works for your clients.
Absolutely, man. So the Wired to Win framework begins with an initial consultation, right? Where we essentially get an idea of where we are on the GPS, right? When you pull up your GPS, it picks up your location, you punch in where you want to go. Those are the first two most important things. Hey, where are we at and what direction do we want to head in? Once you hit that go, it's going to give you a multitude of different paths that you can take. The very first thing we do once we get clear on what direction where we're at, where we're trying to go is we meet your self-image, right? Your self-image is critical. It defines your possibilities and the capabilities of your life. It's essentially a complex
Did you say
picture
we
of who
meet
we
your
are.
self image?
We meet your self-image. We meet your self-image because the
That's deep.
reality is, DeShazer, that
That's
many
deep.
of us, it's facts, fam. It's facts. I mean, listen, our self-image, apart from being the underlying software that runs our entire lives subconsciously, we don't even know where it comes from because it comes from the people that raised us and that looked after us and the observations that we made from the time that we were about 1 year old, give or take, to about 7 or 8. Science has backed this up. There's books on it. Psycho-cybernetics is one I highly recommend to your listeners. But it's 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 not us. It's not us until we consciously take charge of it and direct it in a way that serves us. Right. So getting clear on where that self-image comes from, how it is serving you, how it may be hindering you, and then starting to recreate that self-image in accordance with your values. Right. So that's the second thing we start to focus on is, hey, what are your values? What's important to you in life? If you ask me, it's my family, it's my health, it's having stability, security, it's having freedom in many different ways, physical freedom, financial freedom,
Hmm.
mental freedom. Um, but you want to get clear
Amen.
on those values, and then it's about getting clear on how every single choice you make on a moment by moment basis either coincides or conflicts with those values. Because if you're not clear on your values and your goals are not in line with those values, it doesn't matter how much rubber you put on the road, you're going nowhere fast. So making sure that we're acting in accordance with those values then allows you to maximize productivity, allowing for work-life balance. And then we dive into different aspects. We dive into financial planning. We dive into parenting strategies, setting the kids up to win. We dive into personal and career development because that's really important as a man is you want to constantly, be growing personally, but also within your career path. Our career paths as men, um, they are meant to work on us. They are meant to allow us to give us a platform to express our gifts and to have an impact on this world, but they work on us just as much as we work on our path. So constantly making sure, hey, are we happy where we are? Are we fulfilled where we are in our careers? Are we fulfilled with the impact that we're making on our communities, on the world, in our families? So that's important. And then continuously evolving within that career path. And then it's also important, DeShazer, to explore leisure. Today's society is a very hustle and bustle society. Everybody's go, go, go. And, you're applauded for how little you sleep and how much you work and how little you enjoy the moments and things like that. But we need to have ways to unplug and recharge, both by ourselves as men, with maybe other men in a social setting, and with our families. So exploring leisure and exploring hobbies and things that you like to do. And then it's about looking downfield and seeing what you want to create for your future, both for yourself and for your family. So the course is about 10 weeks long. We have that initial call and then we begin the 10-week process. And every single week we review one of those pillars and see where we're at there and put in key habits and actions that are going to help us progress in that area of life.
That's good. That's awesome. You went out for a second because even though my son is in an entirely different room, he's smart enough to turn on my Bluetooth headphones and everything went to Bluetooth. And I know that was him because he's always doing it. So, but I did hear a lot of it. So yeah, that's cool. And just to make sure too, you don't just work with men, you work with women, as well too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was raised by a single
Okay.
mom. I was raised by a
Okay.
single mom, so I got a
Oh,
special place in my heart for moms too, obviously. So yeah, definitely.
absolutely. Let's give it up for the moms. You know what I'm saying? Like it's mom and dad sided, but we still
100%.
got to give
Yeah.
it up to these amazing women that brought us here, right? I was also raised by a single
Hmm.
mom for the longest time too, and that was when me and my mom were like the closest. My brother and I, we used to wake up in the morning and just go lay in her bed and just hang out with her, and that was something I'll never forget. I'm glad she found somebody, but it was definitely an experience that I'll never forget, and I know that's when we were the closest. And so I love it. So yeah, always got to give it up for the single moms. But so yeah, I think that's awesome. And the beautiful part about framework is that it can be a shell to correlate to many things. And many fathers' excuses stem from different things like their physical, mental, or spiritual state, which can be addressed by adapting disciplined lifestyle and engaging in daily self discoveries. So, my question to you, and kind of like crossing over into fatherhood, is how can we apply your framework, Wired to Win, in our homes to support this approach?
Yeah, 100%, man. It starts with taking control of your day, right? How are you investing your 24 hours? What information is going into your mind and what actions are expressed
Mm,
as a result? I think it's critical, and this has always served me really well, is to make yourself the first appointment of your day. Get up a couple of hours before the kids, get up a couple of hours before your first work appointment, and make you and becoming centered the first priority of the day. Put something educational, inspirational into your mind. Get clear on your goals, get clear on your intentions for that day, and then take a little bit of time. It could be 30 minutes, it could be 60 minutes, whatever works for you, but challenge yourself physically. Get that heart rate moving, experience a little bit of self imposed discomfort. Because if you can experience that self imposed discomfort, overcome it, then you're much less likely to get knocked off center through circumstance of the world. So once you've done
mm.
that, then it gives you that sense of accomplishment before you even start your day with other people. And then give the important people and tasks of the day their respective time. You have your time, you have to manage it properly. And if that means breaking your day down and giving 20% of your time here, 20% of your time, if you need to mathematically break it down to make sure that you're covering all your bases, do so. But give everything its due time and give it 100% so that when it's time to move on to the next task, when it's time to move on to the next appointment, you didn't leave your mind behind. You're where you need to be. But it's all about
That's
prioritizing what's
awesome.
important and giving it its due time. Yeah.
That's cool. And we didn't really get to do this, but I do want to kind of just so people know what this looks like, if it's okay with you. Can you list um, all the modules in the framework just so people can have a better idea of kind of what we're flowing from? Or do you have that
100%.
on?
So the very first one,
Oh, yeah, cool, cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You want me to review them, or I can also put them. I can also put the link in the show notes afterwards to give you the PDF.
Oh yeah,
But we
let's do
can
that
break them
too.
down
Yeah,
real
that'd be
quick.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll put the link in there so they have the modules in writing. But the first one goes back to that self-discovery and value clarification. So that self-discovery is again meeting your self-image. Where does the 95% of your subconscious activity come from? We need to get that down, and then we need to clarify those values. From there, it's about health and wellness, but we need to make sure that we have a sustainable exercise and nutrition and mental health practice. Because if your body is deteriorating and breaking down, and if your body is an anchor that you got to drag around with you all day long, you ain't gonna get very far, and you ain't gonna do much for other people, right? So that's second. From there, it's time management and productivity, like we just discussed. Make yourself the first appointment of the day. That's critical, and then get very clear on the intentions for the day, on the encounters you're going to have on that day, and give every task and every person their undivided attention. Give them 100%. that will help you with work-life balance, which is number four. Making sure that everything has its day so that when you're with your kids, you're not thinking about work. And when you're with work, you're not thinking about your kids or what you're missing, and you're not guilty about any of that because you've structured it in such a way where you've spread yourself evenly. You're not too thin over here. You're not
Mm,
overwhelmed over here. It's, there's a level of balance. And I'll pause right here and say that this is a practice. You're not going to be balanced on day one, especially if you're operating on one end of the spectrum. But that's what the process is all about. It's helping restore a level of balance. And from there, it's financial management. I think financial education, DeShazer, is so critical. And I know we'll dive into this a little bit later in the show as well. But making sure that that you and your partner are clear on your finances, making sure that there's budgeting, making sure that there's planning, making sure that there's constant communication about finances, that you're clear on what's going in, on what's coming out, and again, setting that up as a framework that you're going to teach to your kids and help set their relationship up with money. So it's not just about how you're managing your life today, but it's about what patterns you're going to pass on to the kids. And then from there, it's parenting and family dynamics. So it's managing the household from a domestic standpoint, effective parenting strategy so that you have happy kids. I'm really lucky in the sense that my wife at one point in her career was a newborn care specialist. So we didn't really have sleepless nights when the
oh,
kids were born. She knew how to do all that stuff, the
okay.
nutrition. I mean, my kids they've always been on a regimen. There's a sleep period, there's an activity period, there's food periods, and it's just like clockwork. And we don't miss a beat.
Wow.
Occasionally when we go out or whatever, it throws the schedule off, but we adapt. But that's very important. And then there's also exposure when it comes to your kids, right? So structured activity for the kids as they grow a little bit older, putting your kids in around other kids, I think is critical. Making sure that they're being exposed to the world around them. You don't want to keep them in this bubble. So there's we can go down that whole rabbit hole of, just supporting
Yeah.
development and education for the kids. There's career development. That's number seven, career development, because again, as men and as moms, as dads, our careers are a big part of our lives. It's
Mm,
important for us to be joyful in what we do. It's important for our careers this year to bring the best out in us. There's so many people today that are doing what they are doing because their parents encourage them to do it, because society encouraged them to do it, because it pays well, because their ego wants whatever comes about it. But if what you're doing
mm,
doesn't bring out the
that's
best in
good.
you, if it doesn't fill you up, there's always going to be this little emptiness within you. If it doesn't fill your inner child up, that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old little kid up, if it doesn't fire you up, there's always going to be a little void. No matter how much money you make, no matter, how many people are proud of you, you got to love what you do. It's got to bring out the best in you. You have to
Mm,
feel like, shit, I did something amazing today. So
yeah.
making sure that we're happy in our careers is huge. From there, number eight is personal development. So that goes back to just, what are you putting in your mind? Is it the news? Is it drama? Is it distraction? Is it garbage? Or are you putting in education and inspiration? And are you practicing self-inquiry to see how you're developing? Are you taking an interest in yourself? Are you taking an interest in your own development? That's critical. And then number nine is leisure and hobbies. So whether it's going camping with friends, or going to playing around a golf, or just going surfing, or going to the beach, but what do you do to unplug and again plug back into that inner child? What do you do that makes you happy? I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the woman was asking somebody, what makes you happy? And the person's like, making other people happy makes me happy. And she said, that's only the
Mm,
case because you haven't checked in with your inner self in so long that you have forgotten what makes you happy. So I understand that
wow.
overflowing and helping other people is important. It's critical. It's part of the circulation of energy, of consciousness on this planet. We are here to be together and to share with each other. But it
Yeah.
starts in here. It starts with you. So you have to make
Yeah.
yourself happy, bring joy to yourself first. If you're not bringing joy to yourself, it's going to be hard to do it for other people. And if you are doing it for other people without bringing joy to yourself first, there's something called burnout. It's on the street that you're on.
Mm,
So that's why incorporating leisure time is important, I believe. And then lastly, it's that reflection and that future planning. I'm very big on being in the present, but you do want to have some of your
Mm,
perspective downfield at certain times so that you can anticipate what's coming
of
and so
course.
that you can plan effectively, especially when you've decided to bring kids into this world and, your actions affect more than just you. So those are the 10. And yeah, we review them over the course of 10 weeks in that order. And then yeah, depending on the individual, sometimes they like to start right back from the top and we run through it for another 10 weeks. And every time you run through that program, you're a different person. Every week, every time, you're a completely different person. So the
Mm,
perspective changes, the outcomes change, and it's just about, going onward and upward all the time.
that's cool. So it's like constantly adding another layer to your self discovery each time you go through it.
Oh, 100%. And it's just infinite, man. It's infinite. We are holographic in nature. And holographic means that
Mm,
the entire whole is contained in one part. So to simplify it, every cell of our body, every individual cell of our body, the trillions of cells, contains all the information necessary for an entire new you. So from that perspective, we're
mm.
infinite. So every time we go through this process, we're going to discover, like you said, just a new aspect of ourselves. And it's limited by you and your creativity and your curiosity.
That's awesome. And maybe I missed it, but I just want to make sure because I know with my seven laws of the modern dad, I have it ordered from, most important to, I wouldn't say least important, but it's in specific order of importance. Um, and is there a certain, like, is the first one the most important one to understand, like the foundation, or is it just you can, any order is does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, no, you're absolutely right. The Wired to Win course
Okay.
is exactly the same. Now, I think that first one is really
Okay.
important, and I don't want to say that there are some that are less important, but I do like that
Right,
chronological
right.
framework.
Yeah.
And some people may be
Okay.
really centered in certain areas and may need a lot of work in other areas. But we do go down in that order. And
Hmm.
if there's a particular aspect that needs a little more emphasis, maybe we spend some extra time there. But yeah, that is the order that we proceed in.
That's awesome. So, so let me ask you this: how important do you think it is for fathers to assess their current satisfaction and fulfillment levels in relation to their family? Because we're talking about, balance and stuff, and I know it's important not. To, I
Yeah.
know it's hard sometimes to kind of assess, where you are, or how everybody else feels. So how can someone, a man, a father, do that?
Yeah, man, I think it comes back to reflection. Too many of us are too quick to give, 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 give to everybody around us. But like I said, there's that, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old little kid in there that needs love. And if you're constantly,
Mm,
excuse me, leaving him hanging, um, you're always going to be wondering why you're always mentally preoccupied. Why there's this little sense of emptiness within you, because you haven't checked in with that little you in a while. And that I think is critical to do. You need to check in with yourself, and I think that's a good way to do that is through the kids. A lot of times when I'm hanging out with my daughter, she reminds me of a little me, just a little Bane bouncing around. So check, spending time with her allows me to identify with my inner self, with my little kid, and
mm.
and just showing that little kid love, doing little things that help keep me energized. I would say full cup, keep my cup full, but that expression is being overused these days. But yes, it's very important.
Yeah, I feel like when you think of one word that describes what a child's job is, learning, right? But when you look at the experience of a parent as a father, I think that one word of our jobs when it comes to our children is remembering. Because,
Yeah.
not only is it helping us to relate to our children and make them feel like, we're human too and we have that kid inside, but it also keeps us and helps us understand when we start getting frustrated and upset at the things they do. Now, I have some goofy kids. I have some goofy ass kids, and I'm not gonna lie to you. The things they do
I'm
just
right
makes
there
me
with
look at them
you.
like, you know.
What are you doing?
But I
I didn't
was
show you
just as
that.
goofy. I was.
Yeah.
I know, right? I was crazy. I was just a goofy kid, and for me to sit here and judge them for that, not only is that damaging to them, but it's also damaging myself. I can't heal. I can't come to terms with myself and say that I understand it. And there's, I have respect for, I actually have respect for people who tell me they don't want to have kids because they know how they were as a kid and they just don't want to deal with that. Like, okay, you're honest, I respect it, and you're aware. Because there's a lot of parents who have kids aren't even aware that they're that we've been there. They do goofy things and we may get upset, but or they may have issues like my 6 and 7 year old argue all the time, and it can be about I don't want to say lame because what's important to them is important to them. But when I have bills and I have, business to run, it's like, and you're not sharing the Nintendo Switch or you're trying to figure out whose jacket's who, I actually have to take time to like figure that out, help them with those problems. Because that's what we're there for. It doesn't have to be big for us, but it's big for them. And not only is it helping them and allowing us to continue to bond with them in a different type of way, but it's showing them how to be problem solvers at the problems or the levels that they are at right now and the problems that they're receiving. So, and I hear it too, my uh, my daughter goes to school and there's a problem at school and she'll say something to them because my kids are very deep thinkers. So, they'll say something to her and she was like, did you really mean what you said? Or are you just trying to be rude? Or just kind of like, she likes to get down to the nitty gritty of what's going on. So I told her, I said, Ava, you're going to have to learn how to fight now because I don't want you to get hurt because she be saying some smart things like, but it's true. But for like a kid, it's like, that's a little bit too deep. And but anyways, but it all started from our conversations and us breaking down the problems at their level and stuff. So to be able to, for me, that's how I assess, but it took a long time to get to that realization, to see that reflection of myself, because we've all been there, whether it's a new job or, we're working for an organization and we don't know how to do it. Like to the owner or the head of the organization, they could look at us like, dude, what's going on? Like it's easy, but it may not be easy to us. We're learning something new. And so I constantly remind myself, that how do I want to be treated when I'm trying to learn something? Because if I'm getting angry at them, and it's happened before where I got upset with them because they didn't understand it, and now I'm working a job, and my boss is like, why don't you understand? I'm just like, you know what? This seems very familiar. I got to find ways to change how I interact with my children because I definitely don't like it, and I don't want them to grow up and have insecurity issues and low self-esteem and confidence because now I'm snapping and I'm making them feel bad for not knowing. That's great. I love that advice. And I'm just kind of going through different points because there's certain these modules that really stood out to me. For example, health, right? Um, how can regular exercise and proper nutrition impact a father's ability to lead his home effectively? I know you said that the last thing you want to do is be feeling like you're dragging around a weight, and I've had that issue where you know, maybe I've eaten something too much in the morning and now I'm sluggish. Saturdays are days where we kind of, it's family day. So we wind down. So my wife and I, we'll have our time together and then we'll wake up, we'll eat a big breakfast. And then I'm just like, I just want to chill all day, like I don't want to do anything. I can't do that on the weekend. I got stuff to do. So it's
Yeah.
important to be aware of that. But in your perspective and your understanding and experience, um, you know, what does that look like to you? Like, what are the positives of having the regular exercise and, the downsides of not taking care of yourself?
Yeah, man. I mean, you said it. You don't want to feel sluggish. If you're feeling sluggish for whatever reason, if you're feeling weak, if you're feeling like my back hurts and I can't pick up my kid and throw her around or wrestle with her, um, that's just gonna it's gonna hold you back as a dad. You know what I mean? So I have
Yeah.
specific exercises that I do at the gym that literally translate to me picking up my 50-pound daughter and throwing her up in the air and catching her, because that's what
Mm,
I'm doing in my life on my daily basis. So I want to prepare for that. So that to me has been just my center anchor exercise that keeps me operating at full tilt. Eating well keeps me cognitively and emotionally, and it affects what you eat, what you put in your body affects you in so many different ways, from your mood to your cognitive function, like I said. So that's enormous for me. And the reality is that if a man can push himself to overcome, and you can put big challenges in front of yourself. There's times when I go to the gym and I put weight in front of on a barbell and I say, listen, I'm gonna get under that thing and I'm gonna squat and I'm gonna stand back up with it and it's gonna fucking happen.
Mm,
If I can push
mm,
myself to overcome that challenge, I can most certainly push myself to help navigate, challenging times within my family. If I can lead myself to overcome something big
mm,
like that, then I can lead my family to overcome our problems. So it just gives me this sense of capability. DeShazer, I think, is the word. I'm just capable because of a sound
mm.
exercise and nutrition practice. My physical body does not hold me back. I don't get sick. Knock on wood, I don't get sick. I can't remember the last time I got sick. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's critical. It's critical. It's critical. The best ability, and this is something I heard from in a sports coach, but the best ability is availability. If you are dragging ass, if you're not
Mm,
100%, you're not going to be available for your kids. You're not going to lead them anywhere. You're not gonna set an example, nothing, none of that. So again, it goes back to taking charge of yourself, and exercise is just it's exercise and mental health, the most fundamental vehicles, for building discipline. If you're not in command of this gift that the creator has given you, the physical body and the mind and the thought process, the underlying thought process, if you're not in command of that, you are literally like a ship without a rudder floating around in the ocean and waiting
mm.
for this next storm to come knock you around. You know what I mean? So
During
you gotta
hurricane
get
season.
after it, man. There's no excuse. During hurricane, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, none of that. And you can't afford that. You cannot afford that.
No, that's good. I so I ride bikes, and one of the biggest things that riding bikes has taught me is be very intentional with the maintenance. I mean, you just can't just
Hmm.
get on a bike without checking the tires for days, and you're not looking at the oil because something very bad can happen. And I feel like it's just as serious with our bodies. Someone once, my mentor told me, he said, we're one sickness away from leaving our families, or being out of service for a while. Um, my most sucky moment in my life was when back in 2008, 2019, I was in house fire, had 35% burns on my body, had to get a skin graft,
Wow.
everything. And I was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. Um, when I got home, I had to learn how to walk again. My wife had to shower me. That's humbling.
Yeah.
She had to change my
Yeah. Yeah.
bandages. She had to stay home. At the time, she was in the military, so luckily, she had the ability to, take off that time. But we had stairs too, and the kids had to eat. So by the grace of God, she was there during that time that I couldn't walk, and we had a friend living with us too. And when she left, he was able to help too. But that just goes to show, like, I had no control over that once I got in my injuries. I couldn't provide, I couldn't contribute, and it made me feel so useless. And so,
Yeah.
you don't have to tell me, like, it's very important that, we take care of our health. And, that's awesome that you haven't got sick in a while. That's just a representation of how well you take care of yourself. I don't get sick that often either. Obviously, when sickness is high, we try to stay inside. And kids go to school and they pass that stuff around like it's a hot potato. So we be fighting that when they come home too. But you know, um, but yeah, it's so important. And like I said, that changed my life when he said we're one sickness away, and that really makes me want to hustle and not only take care of myself but also the family when it comes to our diet and our health too. So we can all be healthy. Um, there's something else I want to talk about too, which is important. You talked about finances, and I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you, why is budgeting and financial planning crucial for fathers looking to provide a secure future for their families?
It's critical, man, for a lot of different reasons. Unless you live off the grid, unless you live off the land in Alaska somewhere, cash flow is the blood flow of everyday life. And that's just facts right there. And if you're
Mm,
not crystal clear on how much is flowing in and how much is flowing out and where it's going and what the difference between an asset, a liability, a necessity, an impractical necessity are, you could really find yourself in stormy weather or on this roller coaster of sometimes you got it and sometimes you don't. So financial
mm,
education is not taught in schools, and that's a shame. But it is instead modeled by parents. So I tell my wife all the time, our marriage is in part a business partnership. And every single month we sit down and review the numbers, the goals, the budgets, not just to manage the household or maintain a standard of living, but again, to set the blueprint for how our kids will deal with money and for the relationship that our kids will have with money, and to leave a legacy that's going to
Mm,
set them up to win. So it's something that the parents have got to educate themselves on. And there's tons of education. Robert Kiyosaki is a very well-known author that talks about the importance of financial education. If no one's ever heard of him,
yes.
if your viewers don't have experience in that, dive into his stuff
Check
and
it
then
out.
keep going down the rabbit hole. But definitely financial education is huge. And again, it's modeled. It's modeled. It was modeled to me by my parents. It's going to be modeled to my kids through me. So you need to take an interest in it. You need to make sure that you're on top of it. And yeah, it's critical. It's critical for modern dads and
That's
modern
good.
society, without question.
Let me ask you this, kind of a little off the road a little bit.
Yeah, my favorite.
One of the biggest things that fathers find it very difficult is things that they cannot control. There's been times where I may have lost a job, or, um, you know, maybe, I know I got fired from one job one time when I worked for a specific hotel. But, that was when we first got married. But there's been times when it wasn't my fault. Like I either got laid off during COVID, and it really messed with me and my confidence. Um, what would you say to fathers who feel the stress of not really being able to provide in that moment, but supposedly being the leader and the provider? Like how can they come to terms and have peace in that season that they're in that very moment?
Yeah, man, that's why it's so important to get clear on your values, right? Get clear on your values
Mm,
because let's just say you got fired, right? To me, something like that, 10 times out of 10 is a blessing in disguise. And that's the way I would coach it to you. That's the way I would
mm,
coach it to myself. That's the way I would coach it to a client. You cannot get to the branch you're trying to swing to if you're holding on to the one you're currently on. So a lot of times the universe works
mm,
in mysterious ways. And if you want a new job, you might get fired. If you want a new house, your old one might burn down. If you want a new car, it might crash. Somebody might total your car while it's parked on the side of the road. The universe doesn't always give you this
wow.
smooth, right? There's going to be a little bit of turbulence, right? To test you and see if you're ready, really ready for that next level, right? So the first thing you want to develop is, hey, if if the shit hits the fan, breathe, stay centered. Don't let your vibration go all over the place. Don't let your frequency spaz out.
Mm,
Understand that it's all part of a bigger plan and that it's all working in your best interest. And then develop your values because from there, what it's about is working on yourself, right? It's about coming up with
mm,
daily result producing activities that make you feel like you're progressing, make you feel like you're engaged, make you feel like you're developing as a human being, right? Stay productive. Find
that's
ways to
good.
stay productive. If it means extra time with the kids, that's great. If it means working on yourself, refining your skill set, that's great. If it means, hey, now I'm going to go out and network a little bit more, that's what it means. But keep your composure when something unexpected happens. And you don't have to keep it too long before you can start to see the energy flowing in a different direction. You know what I mean? If you lose it right away, you're blind to the opportunity that just presented itself. But if you can keep your composure, you start to feel that energy flowing. And if you can keep up with those result producing activities, those little things that make you feel accomplished, it won't be long before the next one shows up. And you'll be in the frame of mind to receive that blessing because you kept your composure.
Mm, that's good. I always think that we need to have preparations for our expectations. So,
Yeah.
because even if you do get into a season of where things are moving again, what were your habits before then? Because guarantee that if you don't have great positive habits and a solid foundation that you've been consistent with outside of work, then anything you do is going to fail. We have to be prepared for the role we want to be in. So, for me, during COVID, I wrote a book. And so
Great
it's
use
hard
of
for
your
me to be
time.
down for
That's
too long.
awesome.
Right. uh, I started out with the book. I was working night shift at a hotel, and then I got laid off. And obviously, I had more time to finish that book. But I knew that by the time that, I was back to work, I wouldn't have time to, because hotel industry has to catch up, and they start pushing you to make sure they get their numbers back up. And so I knew I was going to be busy. So I wanted to finish this book. And because of that, when I went back to work, I was able to not necessarily work on the creative side, but just selling it. Me and my wife were selling it. So yeah, it's very important to just, I love that. Keep your mind occupied, because even the Bible says, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. So the moment you start getting distracted and start, you know, um, just being that boat out there in the middle of a hurricane with no engine or anything, then you'll start moving any which way. Um, so that's good. Um, so, uh, um, can you share some stress reduction techniques and mindfulness practices that fathers can use to stay centered and present with their children? I know you said about breathing is important, and maybe a little bit redundant, but maybe a different aspect of it, that we can share.
Breathing is huge. My number one DeShazer has always been going for walks. I call them data dump
Okay.
walks. That's what they are for me.
Ooh.
And typically mine are at the end of my day. And at the end of my day, I go on a 30-minute
Okay.
walk around my block, and the day is coming to an end. I like to do it just right around sunset, because the energy at that time is just great. Maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but do your
Mm.
best. But it's just an
Especially on
opportunity
the
for
West
you to let
Coast.
your monkey mind. Yeah, yeah. It's an opportunity for you to let your monkey mind go crazy. Observe the crap that's bouncing around it there. Let it go. Observe it. No, observe it just like if you were walking around on a hike in the woods. You would walk and you would make an observation and you would see that a rock was there, but you wouldn't ask yourself, why is that rock there instead of there? Or why is this tree in this shape
Mm.
instead of that shape? You're just observing. So you observe what's going on in your mind, and then
Right.
you begin to release it and release it and release it. And now you've given it the attention that it deserves, but you haven't attached an emotion to it. You haven't attached a story to it. You haven't attached an outcome to it. You've just honored that and let it go. And then you can go to bed with an empty mind. That's really what the goal of that is. That's why I do it at the end of my day, but you can also do it at the beginning of your day to get a clear mind for the day. You can do it in the middle of your day if you're overwhelmed. But a data dump walk for me has always just been a pillar of support to manage stress. I also love guided audios for stress. So Dr. Martin Rossman,
Mm.
you can look him up on YouTube, so can your members. And he has some tremendous mental guided imagery audiobooks and things like that to help you relieve stress. I love his work. Um, but I'm an
Okay.
auditory person. I listen to audio. Music is also really nice. Being in nature, I think, is really, really powerful. Just going out to the beach for a while, or going out to, any nature area, just get away from the noise, the lights, and the concrete, and put your feet on some solid ground, and let the energy that is bouncing around into your body be absorbed by the earth. We are conductors of energy and electricity.
Mm.
The earth will suck that shit right out of us if we allow it to.
Right.
Um, so those would probably be my top three: the audios, the data dump walks, and then if you can do some grounding, if you can spend a little bit of time in nature, that goes a long way.
Man, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love how you really focus on this in the evening. It's important because, the last few things that we do before we sleep are usually amplified in our dreams, subconscious. And um, so the fact that you do that, at the end of the day is great. I think it's good for resetting your brain as well. Um, and I was gonna say, notice everybody, he said nothing about open him a six pack, smoking,
Oh, no, no,
drinking,
no.
whatever. Like nothing was that. And I think that is the biggest misconception, when it comes to that, is that we think that we deserve it. But the only thing you're doing is like anesthesia. Like the only thing you're just putting yourself in a deep state of relaxation or sleep. You're not growing, you're not developing anything. And so these are natural highs. When I go walking and I'm walking outside, and especially at night when my family, we went camping. I've said it before, but we had a travel trailer. We traveled across different campsites in America. uh, I love walking outside and at night watching the other, everybody had their own campsites decorated. And I used to go take my dog, and we used to go watch walking. and it was just such a natural high just to be out there in nature. And so we have to reframe our mind on what we think that we should do in certain situations, because that's your subconscious telling you that when this happens, this needs to happen. And what, we've taught it for so long doesn't necessarily make it right. And so if we know, we have some hint that there's a better way or more healthier way, then when we know that we're stressed or we're dealing with something, it's going to trigger us to want to do what we've always done. But we have to take opportunities like this to learn and figure out different ways to connect naturally. Um, and so yes, so I have two questions for you. And the first question is, what message do you want to share with the world?
I think the most important one is get to know yourself, meet that self image, love
Mm,
yourself, accept yourself. If you're able to understand, love, and accept yourself, you are going to be much more likely to understand, to love, and accept other people around you. Whether it's a stranger walking down the street, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your kids, whether it's your
mm,
coworkers, whether it's people you don't even like, you will rise above the noise. You will literally live on the high road, and you will be
mhm.
unshakable. Just get to know yourself, love
That's
yourself.
good. Yeah, people don't understand that our whole environment, the outer environment, is just a reflection of their inner experience. And so, that's why I get under my wife all the time, or my kids, anyone. Every time they say the word hate, I try not to say it myself, but hate is such a very dangerous word. Just because you hate something doesn't mean that hate's, it's not doing anything to you. And so yes, it's important how
Oh,
we
wait,
view and how we
without
treat others, because
question.
we're all connected. Yeah, that's good. And
That
so
golden rule, what you
my
do
next
unto
question
others.
is, yeah, exactly. What you do under others. Yeah. So we got to remember that. So my last
Yeah.
question is, where can we find you? Where can we connect with you? I love your website, by the way. Very just pristine, professional. It gives me everything I need to know about what you do. But yeah, where can we find you on social media, TikTok, website, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever? Where is that?
Yeah, man, it's trainwithvince.com is the website. Right there, you can book a complimentary initial consultation with me. We can talk just like we're just talking right now. On Instagram, and TikTok, I'm train with Vince, train underscore with underscore Vince. And then I also have an app in the App Store, Get Moving, the Get Moving app. And that's just another way to
Mm,
connect with me 24/7 on the app community. There's a tremendous amount of valuable fitness content on there, guided exercise tutorials, guided sessions, a bunch of tremendous resources on there. So yeah, train with Vince and get moving.
that's awesome. I got to talk to you about that app. I want to do an app for the Modern Dad Society. I want to mainly be
Oh
on an
yeah,
app,
most
just
definitely.
because I know that it's
Yeah.
portable, it's quick. So I think that's awesome. I'm going to check that out.
Yes,
Awesome.
definitely, man. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for listening. This has been such a huge, segment, amazing value. And it's funny because I always talk about the difference between calling and purpose. And sometimes our calling is a tool that fulfills our purpose. You know, my calling is audio. I do music, I do audio, but my purpose is healing. Audio and music is just a way to get people's attention, to create an audience for people, or a safe space that they can come and I can pour into them with my purpose. And I love how you're using your calling and fitness to really help people heal and remember their inner child. And that's what it's all about. It makes for very dynamic people. And I want people to consider that too. Keep that in mind. Don't get mixed up and just in your calling, because Vince was able to figure out his purpose. He was able to connect something more than just fitness in what he does. He was able to connect how he can help people's mind with their finances, because he truly figured it out. He understands how this matrix is working, how the world tries to manipulate our minds and control us, and he found a way through his framework to reset our minds and allow us to think for ourselves, which is one of the greatest books I ever read, that helped me, that started me in this journey, was the Four Agreements. And it was such an amazing book because it helped me. It laid the foundation of, allow me to think for myself, because that's the important part. Our parents, religion, everything has a lot to do with who we are today. But if it's one thing that I understand that the Most High wants us to be aware of, I believe He wants us to think for ourselves, which is, I believe He wants us to think for ourselves, which is why He created free will. Obviously, it's important to be around a solid circle. It's good to have certain mentors and people that you follow to keep you grounded. But this is great for us to allow ourselves to think for a second and say, look, we don't have to be who our parents were or be who our parents want us to be. We can be who we want to be. And that starts here with understanding yourself, rediscovering yourself, and also working with your children instead of against them. Yes, with their parents. Yes, we're here to show them the way and teach them, but we're also here to remember what it's like to be that child, because we all have that child inside, which is causing us always to be a battle with ourselves, because there's adulthood and there's that playful side that we have as well. And so people like Vince have cracked the code. So you want to make sure you follow him on social media, because I constantly have been following him. I keep an eye on everybody who wants to be on the show. I want to make sure that I'm putting credible people, so I'm always got an eye on people, and there's nothing that I've seen on his page that was contradictory or anything. Everything is inspirational, and you should definitely go ahead and follow him. So thank you so much, Vince, for joining me. Thank you, everyone who's listening. I hope this brought you value. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me or reach out to Vince directly. You could find him. I'll attach all his information on the show notes. But yeah, stay involved, stay plugged in, and like I always like to say, remember, be conscious and stay present always. I will see you next time in the Modern Dad Society podcast.
Thank you very much, DeShazer. That was